When we look at pretty much any NFL franchise, there's always one, two, or even sometimes three quarterbacks in their history that you can pinpoint by saying they might be the best in franchise history. But there's one franchise in particular that doesn't ever seem to get it right, even when they have success, and that is the Chicago Bears. Now, some people say their best quarterback of all time is Sid Luckman, which was a long time ago, like in the 40s, and since then they've kind of had a revolving door at quarterback, not being able to keep a lot of these QBs for the longest time. And of course, when they won the Super Bowl in 1985 with the ferocious defense and Walter Payton at running back, they had Jim McMahon under center, which he wasn't a terrible quarterback, but he did miss a lot of games because of injury, and basically he was one of those quarterbacks that you just rode as long as he didn't make a mistake and did his job. The Bears were going to win a lot, which in the 80s, or at least the mid to late 80s, they did a lot of that. And Eric Kramer also has the best season from a Bears quarterback in history in 1995, and they're the only current franchise that doesn't have a quarterback to hit 4,000 passing yards in a season. And this is a team that had Jay Cutler, a quarterback who we knew could do it back in his prime, but just could never seem to, and that was probably the last, decent quarterback that the Chicago Bears have had, as it seems like since he's been gone, they've been trying to find his replacement, and of course, recently Justin Fields didn't work out, so they traded him to Pittsburgh, and they're now working with Caleb Williams, who is getting better week in and week out, so maybe, just maybe, Caleb Williams can be that guy in the future.
I doubt it.
The Bears have been to 2 Super Bowls in the franchise's history, the one I mentioned in 85, where their ferocious defense helped them win, and in the 2006 season, 21 years later, the Chicago Bears would end up in the Super Bowl. Now, this season is weird and interesting because the Bears were coming off a solid 2005 year, which they went 11-5 with Kyle Orton under center, where he put up not great numbers, but decent enough game managing numbers that he knew his job was to, again, run the ball and let the defense do its thing. And heading into 2006, the expectations were he was going to start again in the season. But the Bears decided to go with a quarterback from Florida named Rex Grossman, who at this point had scarce starting experience in the NFL. He had been in the league since '03 and just kind of started games here and there. Wasn't anything spectacular. But in 2006, he was under center for the Bears. And you gotta think to yourself, okay, so maybe the Bears don't have a successful season. They had a better year than they did in 2005 when they won 11 games, as the Bears would finish the 2006 regular season 13-3. So that must mean Rex Grossman was good, right? Well, I mean, occasionally he was good. He had a very, very weird season when you look at it in general. I mean, in week 2 against the Bears, he went off for 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and almost 300 yards passing. But then there was a game against the Minnesota Vikings in week 13, where the Bears only had 107 yards of offense, 6 first downs, but yet put up 23 points with Rex Grossman finishing the game, going 6 for 19 for 34 yards and 3 interceptions.
You suck!
Might I remind you about their Week 6 Monday Night Football matchup, as the 5-0 Bears were going to Arizona to take on the 1-4 Cardinals. Now, this was a big game for the Cardinals because this was their first home Monday Night Football game in a while. I believe their first in their new stadium. So, the crowd was rocking. Plus, they had a new running back in Edgerrin James. They had the future of their franchise, Matt Leinart, who was starting in this game, and Matt Leinart played fairly well. And the Cardinals saw themselves up 20-0 at halftime and 23-3 late in the third quarter, and you're thinking the Cardinals have this game. The Bears can't do anything offensively, but somehow, some way, they did with 2 fumble return TDs, and then of course the Hall of Famer Devin Hester in his rookie season, who had one of the best seasons for a returner ever, returned a punt for a touchdown with about 3 minutes left.
Devin Hester from the 18. Reading box, Devin Hester into the open field. And Hester picks up another block. Devin Hester, the punter to beat. He beat him. Devin Hester all the way. Touchdown, Chicago Bears.
And after a Neil Rackers missed field goal, the Bears were able to win this game 24-23. Now, what's so infamous about this game is that Rex Grossman was not the reason for this comeback. Rex Grossman was pretty much what was going to cost this team this game, and take the blame if they didn't win. Because like I said, in that Vikings game where they had 6 first downs, 107 yards, and Rex Grossman put up ugly stats, he at least only had 3 turnovers in that game, because this game he was 14 of 37 for 144 yards, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 2 lost fumbles, meaning that all 6 of the Bears' turnovers came from Rex Grossman on that night. He did not do anything, and yet the Cardinals lost this game. And of course, Dennis Green had this infamous interview.
The Bears are who we thought they were. That's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were. And we let them off the hook.
But then it was weird because they had their bye week, and the very next week against the 49ers, Rex Grossman put up good stats again. But then you look at other games like week 17 against the Packers, where he was 2 for 12 for 33 yards and 3 interceptions. Now granted, he didn't play that full game, not necessarily because he was benched for his performance, but because this was a year where the NFC was very weak, and the Bears had the number 1 seed clinched because the number 2 seeded Saints were 10-6, whereas the Bears had 13 wins. So yeah, again, the NFC was very weak this year. The Bears were able to go in to the NFC and have home field go through them. And I guess in the playoffs, Rex Grossman played okay. I mean, in the divisional round against the Seahawks, he had to kind of turn it up toward the end, and the team won in overtime with a Robbie Gould field goal, which he did a lot of that year. And then in the NFC Championship game, Rex Grossman only threw it 21 times and played very game-managing football, as leading 18-14 entering the fourth quarter. The defense turned up. The Bears scored 21 points to the Saints 0 in the fourth, and the Bears won 39-14, meaning that they, for the second time in the history of the franchise, were going to the Super Bowl. This was the second Super Bowl that I ever watched as a fan, the first one being Super Bowl 40 between the Steelers and Seahawks. And it was one of those ones where I remember people saying, like, whoa, I mean, Peyton Manning's in the Super Bowl against Rex Grossman, and it was one of those ones where it was like, would it be the Bears' defense that would get the victory, or was Peyton Manning finally going to get over that hump and win a Super Bowl despite this not being the best Colts team that they had during the Peyton Manning era? Things started off well for the Bears because to this day, Devin Hester, still the one and only guy to return the opening kickoff of the Super Bowl for a touchdown.
Hester trying to work it back to the middle, gets past the first wave, and here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown.
And the Bears had a 14-6 lead in the first quarter, and Rex Grossman wasn't playing bad. I mean, he had a good completion percentage, but it was a lot of short passes, but 2 turnovers in the game, and the Colts just kept rolling and rolling, whereas the Bears offense became stagnant, and they couldn't overcome that, and the Colts won 29-17, and Rex Grossman would kind of be in and out of the lineup the next year in 2007, where the Bears had an underwhelming year. They would then go back to Kyle Orton in 2008, where they would start off strong but miss the playoffs, and then in 2009 they would trade for Jay Cutler and go back to the NFC Championship game in 2010, where they would lose to their division rival Green Bay Packers because, well, Jay Cutler may or may not have given up on his team. But this one season they had with Rex Grossman as the full-time starter is just so interesting to me, because there was only a couple times where you went, yeah, he had a really good game, but then most of the other time it was either a bad game or just a game where he was just riding the defense in the run game, so you didn't really think anything of it. But because the NFC was so weak this year, I feel like the Bears were able to take advantage of that, and that was their best opportunity during this era to win the Super Bowl. But yet when Rex Grossman is your QB, you're still kind of set up to fail. And I'm not saying that bad QBs can't win a Super Bowl. My favorite team, the Ravens, won their first Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer under the helm. Nick Foles infamously outdueled Tom Brady to win the Super Bowl in 2017. It's just the fact that this was Rex Grossman's only season where he played all 16 games and then the 3 playoff games to go with that, because the next time he would play in a decent amount of games would be in 2011 with the Washington redacted names, and he wasn't all that great either, but Washington knew that he was just a holdover for what was to come for them when they would draft RG3 in the 2012 draft. But that's it for me. You can tell me in the comments below what do you think, especially Bears fans. Were you surprised in 2006 that Rex Grossman was named starter over Kyle Orton? And how did you feel about him weekly? Because it seemed like he would have a good game, come back and have a bad game, and was just decent for most of the season. And how confident were you heading into that Super Bowl that you were going to be able to keep up with Peyton Manning? I mean, like I said, it started out good early on, but did you really think that Rex Grossman was going to be able to go neck and neck with Peyton Manning? Or was it like, well, you know, we have Rex Grossman, they have Peyton Manning, so this might not end well. But until then, that's it for me. Stay safe out there, and I will catch you all in the next one.